Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our November Division III webinar. I'm Bill Regan, Managing Director of Division III, and I'm joined by Louise McCleary, our Vice President of Division III. Today, we're going to provide you with some key updates from our recent Management and President's Council meetings. It's also important to note that our President's Council had the opportunity to meet with our President's Advisory Group before their meeting. Just a few reminders, housekeeping items before we begin. The PowerPoint is now available on the webinars page on ncai.org. The recording will be available by the end of this week, and we'll send it out to all of you who have registered. And finally, to ask questions, please use the Q&A function at the top of your screen, and we'll be sure to answer them at the appropriate time. Now I'll move on to slide 2, in which we'll talk about our agenda. So for today's webinar, I'll provide you with an update on the initial position both our presidents and management councils took on the proposals submitted by the membership for the 26th convention. I'm not going to be discussing the proposals really in any depth at this time. We have a webinar next month, December 9th, in which our Division III regulatory folks will provide a more comprehensive overview of the proposals. So let's hold those legislative questions for them. Also discuss recent action taken by our Management Council regarding a women's lacrosse playing rule. And we'll cover action taken by our Management Council that impacts the submission of graduation rate information and how that impacts the student-athlete NCID numbers. Then Louise will cover our next 3 items, the work and publication, recent publication that came from our Athletic Communications Working Group, exciting updates about live streaming of our Division III championships, and then a conversation about the future analysis of our Division III structure. With that, we can move to the next slide. Our President's Council took the following positions for those proposals that are in the presidential grouping. Proposal in the presidential grouping is a proposal that's tied to the Division III philosophy, strategic plan, or strategic positioning platform. So within that group, the first proposal would establish a Division III national championship for the sport of women's wrestling. The council supported that proposal, really basing it on the sport sponsorship warrants the opportunity for a championship for that particular sport and the continued growth we're seeing in the sport of women's wrestling for Division III. The next proposal would change the criteria on how the division calculates the use of a season of eligibility. It would move it from a season of participation to a season of competition. The council was opposed to this particular proposal. They believed it was in conflict with the Division III philosophy statement and also may have some negative financial impacts on student athletes in Division III. The next proposal is a resolution, actually. It's a name, image, and likeness resolution. And what that resolution would do is charge the governance structure with monitoring name, image, and license activity, what's going on in the landscape nationally, as well as how that is potentially impacting Division III. And based on that observations, potentially recommends potential changes or policy changes or legislative changes to be considered within the governance structure and potentially by the membership. The President's Council was supportive of this proposal, given the current NLI landscape. The next proposal would change in-region competition, moving it from 70% to 50%, as well as some other changes. The council both supported that particular proposal also, noting that it provided some additional flexibility they believe would benefit the membership, reduce the number of waivers, and they did not believe that it was run counter to our Division III philosophy statement. The next proposal would provide the opportunity for multiple AQs for conferences that have 12 or more members. The President's Council was actually opposed to this proposal. They felt they had a negative impact on our at-large selections. The final proposal in the presidential grouping was one that would require core members to participate in the conference's AQ process in order to be eligible to participate in the NCAA championship. The President's Council was supportive of that proposal. They believed it maintained the integrity of the AQ process. If we go now to the next slide. The next grouping is our general grouping, and our Management Council provided the governance position, the initial governance position for these 3 positions. The first one would reduce the waiting period from 2 years to 1 year for an automatic qualifier. Our council was opposed to this. They felt it was unnecessary given the current existing waiver process that's already in place, and provided they thought is ample opportunities to handle the exceptions or the nuances to any type of request that it may see. The next proposal had to do with adding a mandatory winter break for all institutions. Our councils were opposed to this. They felt it was overly restrictive and actually could have some potential negative unintended consequences on student athletes. Those student athletes who may have to have limited access to on-campus facilities, or those that may have to find alternative accommodations when the school is closed or when there is no practice or competition for that week. The last one, be able to provide meals during unofficial visits. The council was supportive of this proposal. They felt it would help alleviate some confusion that currently exists within the membership relative to what are permissible meals that can be provided during an unofficial visit. I will now move on to our next slide, slide 5. The council has also approved legislation that would remove the prohibition of wagering on professional athletics. The effective date for that proposal is November 22nd. As you recall, this is a common legislation, which means all 3 divisions have to adopt this proposal. All 3 divisions have adopted this in their October meetings. The effective date of November 22nd allows for the Division 1 process to continue, which ends on November 21st. It's important to note that the membership will have the opportunity to review this proposal, as it needs to ratify this particular proposal at the 26th business session, because this is a non-controversial proposals. As you know, all non-controversial proposals are ratified by our membership at the convention. Next slide, please. Next slide. Our management council considered a request from 5 conferences to exempt Division III from a new playing rule in the sport of women's lacrosse. That particular playing rule would have required officials in that sport to have to wear headsets beginning with the 2027 season. The council approved this request, thereby making the use of headsets permissive but not mandatory for the sport of women's lacrosse. Based on the legislation that was recently passed at the 25 convention, any action by our management council relative to exempting Division III from a playing rule has to be ratified by the membership at the convention. So this will happen at this next convention, at the 26th convention, in which when the membership considers the blue pages, non-controversial proposals, as well as this, when it ratifies the convention notice, I'll have the opportunity to consider this particular action by our management council. If you go to slide 7. Our management council also amended its policies regarding the requirements for the reporting of graduation rate information. Really, this policy change takes effect with the reporting for the 2032 reporting year. That particular change would require that any graduation rate information that is reported for Division III would have to include a student athlete's NCID number. To facilitate that, or to make that happen, the graduation rate information is based on a 6-year cohort. That means that student athletes initially enrolling at a Division III institution for the first time in the fall of 26 will have to obtain an NCID number. So in 6 years from that fall class of fall of 26 will be the 32 reporting cycle. So all those individuals should have ID numbers. The ID number can be obtained by creating an NCAA profile account through the NCAA Eligibility Center. That NCAA profile account has no cost and is relatively just a couple simple, quick questions. More information about this particular policy change will be coming from the national office in the next several weeks. Happy to answer any questions you have about any of the updates I just gave. If there are none, I'm going to turn it over to Louise.
Thank you, Bill. Again, a reminder, if you have any questions, Bill gave a lot of information. Use that Q&A function and put those in, and we'll get to as many of the questions as possible. So I wanted to give a quick update regarding the Strategic Athletics Communication Guide. I think all of you know that, about a year ago, we created a working group made of athletic communication directors, commissioners, athletics directors, to look at our existing resource. And it's hard to believe, but our first resource in this space was created back in 2012. And think of athletic communication today and everything that has changed. So we had the original guide in 2012, we updated it in 2019, And this working group last year created the last iteration of it that went out to campuses and to conference offices in August. We will also give a hard copy of that guide at this year's convention. The reason why this update is here is what Management Council and President's Council just saw is that the working group has forwarded a formal recommendation to Strategic Planning and Finance to consider establishing an annual grant, both for FY27 and FY28, to help support our athletic communication departments. Those grants could be used for live streaming, for new technology, to help hire student workers. And when you think of what this grant recommendation is, think of the health and safety grant that was available last year. It was a $2,000 grant for any institution to help offset athletic training department room expenses. It's also available this year. So it's a grant that would be in a similar vein. And so Strategic Planning and Finance will get a first look at that next week during their November meeting, but they won't act on it until the spring when they're putting forward their initial recommendations to the councils to build out that FY27 and FY28 budget.
Luis, before you go on, there was a question about sports betting that I'm going to ask, and then I'll go ahead and give an answer. The question was, what would the process be if 2/3 of the Division I membership voted to rescind this sports betting proposal? In other words, what would be the impact on Division III? Division I is in this particular period now in which if 2/3 of the membership has the opportunity to say that they do not like the proposal that would permit wagering on professional athletics. If 2/3 of the Division I membership does indicate that they would like to rescind that legislation is no longer effective for Division I. And because it's common legislation, it would not be effective for all three divisions. So all three divisions must adopt and approve the legislation for it to become effective. So if it is rescinded, it will not be effective for any of the three divisions. Thanks, Luis.
Yep, Bill, there are two more questions related to your update, so let's go ahead and get those. There's one that says, is the NCAA ID number information being passed on to high schools?
Yeah, we are currently working with the Eligibility Center to make sure that information is being communicated to high schools, coaches, high school coaches, club coaches. So we're certainly leveraging their current avenues of communications to make sure that information is well distributed.
And the next question I can answer, when will we know the Division III National SAC position on the legislative proposals? National SAC, they have been reaching out to their conferences to get feedback on those proposals. They meet this week. And so their initial positions on those proposals will be released out to the membership, more than likely with next week's bi-weekly that comes out at the end of the week. There may be... All right, there's one other one, Bill, that I'm going to let you take a look at. We'll circle back to it, but Bryn, we'll go to the next slide. So championship live streaming, again, hopefully most of you saw this. A release was sent out, 2 or 3 weeks ago that Division III is going to repeat providing live streams of every round of our team championships at no charge. We did this last year and had a ton of success with it. Ultimately, we ended up with, I think, over 2.3 million viewers. It equated into over 65 million minutes of viewing. And I like to say when we give those statistics is that's 65 million touches with our brand that we didn't have before we provided those live streams at no charge. Similar to last year, we will partner with Hudl. Hudl will work with all of our championship hosts to make sure those live streams all get placed in one central location that is on NCAA.com. And a reminder that if you are hosting an NCAA championship, one, thank you very much for hosting, but two, you will get a $1,000 per day stipend to help offset those live stream production costs. And if you are hosting football, you will get a $2,000 live stream or $2,000 stipend, because this year there's a requirement that you have to have at least 2 cameras if you're hosting football. The other thing that we did not do last year, it was only done for our spring championships, but every single one of our Division III championships will be promoted via the NCAA fan database. If you've had an opportunity to hear President Baker speak, he talks a lot about it. What is great news is last year there were 13 million in the fan database. Now there are 19 million. And so that is another way for us to promote our live streams and increase our viewership. And what our governance structure, in particular, our President's Council, Management Council, Championships Committee, this opportunity to live stream all of our championships and not have it be with a paywall really has helped us market and strengthen the brand of Division III. And I think a few questions have come in, but I'll get to the last slide and then we'll make sure we go back and answer those questions. So what I would say is really since the pandemic, so probably over the last 5 years, but in particular over the last year and a half, what we have heard at the national office, what members of our Management Council and our President Council have heard, is that there have been different pockets of different conversations about issues that maybe a region has identified. Some ADs have gotten together, some commissioners have gotten together, some presidents have gotten together and identified different issues. And so the governance structure had an opportunity to talk to Management Council, then the President's Advisory Group. And with feedback from those 2 groups, the President's Council agreed to say, you know what, now may be a really good time to do a focus analysis of key issues that are facing the membership. And what I will tell you is that when they talked about this, they talked about doing this analysis, not with an idea to divide the division, but an idea of how we strengthen us. How do we strengthen the division? And so with that in mind, they identified some very early areas that could be part of this analysis: championship access, eligibility standards, minimum membership criteria. But what they are going to do is they don't want to go backwards. They acknowledge that we did a review by Deloitte that looked at our finances about 2 years ago. We also had a review done by Lewis Rice that looked at our enrichment fund. That was about 2 years ago. We continue to use those outcomes today. And then we had a philosophy statement working group that put forward a proposal to the membership 2 years ago. And so they said, let's build off of those 3 reviews. Let's not go backwards and redo that work, but let's springboard off of that. And so during this year's convention, there will be a conversation with presidents and chancellors during the forum that's held on Wednesday afternoon. We will also have a conversation at the Issues Forum. We are at the very beginning of this. We know it will be focused. The President's Council said we will do this review with the idea to strengthen our division, not divide our division. But really, what's next? And we're collaborating with the commissioners. We will also start to work with Nadia to say, how do we get athletics directors, FARs, athletic direct reports, presidents and chancellors thinking about what are the issues that should be part of this analysis? And why is it an issue? What has changed recently that says this should be an issue that the entire division should do a deeper dive in? I also anticipate that this review will not last years and years. It will probably work towards, if there are going to be changes, those changes can be presented and voted on at the 2027 convention. So still lots more to come with this. What I would say to everyone listening is please encourage your president and your chancellor to come to convention, to participate in that Wednesday afternoon discussion, and then we will make sure that we get you all the right information before we have the conversation during the Issues Forum that will take place on Thursday morning. So that's our last slide. Bill, I don't know if you saw the one question I was
I did.
referring to. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
let you maybe tackle that, and then we'll see what else there is.
Great. Yeah. So the question was the council informed of outcomes for any waivers relative to reducing the waiting period for AQs? And the council was advised of outcomes as well as the criteria, and had a really robust discussion about that waiver process and the outcomes of many of those waivers. I'm not sure they debriefed on all of them, but certainly had a very robust discussion about that waiver process, and well informed of the waiver process as well as its outcomes when it made its decision based on its initial position.
Thank you, Bill. Brent, if you'll just go to the next slide, just shows questions. And we'll wait a minute to see if there are any additional questions that come in regarding any of the topics that Bill and I discussed. And so the question is, will the President's and Chancellor's Forum at the convention be available online via video conference? Today, the answer is no, but that's something that we'll take under advisement to see if it's a possibility. But right now, we are not planning on having that available. You'll need to be in person to be able to be part of that conversation. Good question. Any other questions that we can answer for you? As Bill mentioned, we have recorded this. We will put the recording and the PowerPoint on the Division III webinar homepage. Next month, we hope that you'll tune in December 9th at 1:30 to listen to our regulatory affairs colleagues cover the 16 proposals and the one resolution. And Bill, you're going to keep me honest, but the legislative Q&A, I believe, will be available on November 15th.
That sounds about right, Luis. It still has to go. Yeah, that sounds about right.
It won't be earlier than that, and it might be a little later. The official notice is actually November 15th, and usually the Q&A comes out within 1 to 2 weeks after that. So I'll correct myself on my response. Any other questions? Well, we know it's a conference championship for your fall teams. We know that winter is up and running, so it's crossover season on all of our campuses. Our commissioners are busy crowning champions. So we wish you all the best. May the fall weather continue to be beautiful. And if you end up winning your conference, we wish you all the best as you move through the NCAA championship. So thank you for tuning in this afternoon.